Imagine one evening you're lounging on your couch, enjoying a quiet night after a long day. The sound of the TV is low, and the soft hum of the refrigerator is the only noise in the background. You're just starting to unwind, your favorite show playing, when you suddenly hear a loud knock on the door. It's not the casual kind you're used to, not the polite knock of a delivery person or the friendly knock of a neighbor. No, this knock has an edge to it, the kind that sends a chill down your spine. It's fast and forceful, almost like it's demanding your attention. Your heart skips a beat, and your first thought is, who on earth could that be at this hour? You get up from the couch, your mind already racing with possibilities, but you're careful, cautious. Something doesn't feel right. You tiptoe to the door, pressing your eye to the peephole, hoping to get a glimpse before you open it. And there she is, Karen, the infamous HOA officer who lives for finding something to complain about. Her trademark look is unmistakable, that scowl of superiority, her arms crossed, her stance rigid like she owns the entire neighborhood. You can almost feel her glare through the door. She's here. And by the look on her face, you can tell this is no ordinary visit. Something is about to go down. At first, you're tempted to ignore it. Maybe she'll go away. Maybe she'll leave like she always does after one of her incessant notices. But as you stand there, watching through the peephole, you realize she's not going anywhere. She's waiting for you. And the worst part? You can see something in her hand. It's a key. Not just any key, it's the HOA master key, the one that gives her access to every property in the neighborhood. The one that allows her to open any door she feels like, supposedly for routine checks or violations. But you know better than anyone, it's just her way of poking around, trying to find an excuse to report you for something. Your mind starts to race as you think about the last few weeks. There had been a notice slipped under your door just yesterday, a flimsy accusation about some trivial violation. Your grass was a little longer than they deemed acceptable. The color of your fence didn't match HOA standards. Ridiculous things, all of them. But with Karen in charge, nothing was ever too ridiculous. She could turn the smallest infraction into a full-blown issue, and you knew that her next move might involve trying to get into your home to see things for herself. Suddenly, you realize she's already trying to unlock the door. You hear the faint click of the key turning in the lock, the sound of it turning with all the confidence of someone who believes they have full control over your life. It's like a personal violation. This is it, you think. Your heart starts to race. You grab the nearest thing you can find, a nearby kitchen knife, just in case, and without thinking twice, you rush to the door. You swing it open with a force that surprises both you and her. Karen's eyes widen for a moment, clearly caught off guard. "What do you think you're doing?" you demand, trying to sound calm, though your voice is shaking with anger. She stumbles back for a second, but quickly recovers, standing up straighter and putting on that insufferable smile of hers. "I'm just here to check on a few things," she says, as if she has every right to be there. You know better than to let her walk all over you again. "With that key," you ask, motioning toward the master key she still holds in her hand. "You're breaking and entering, Karen. What gives you the right to come into my home uninvited?" She shrugs, her smirk never faltering. "The HOA gave me the key. I'm just doing my job." Your mind races again, thinking about how many other homes she's barged into. How many other neighbors she's invaded under the guise of checking on violations. She's doing more than just enforcing rules. She's overstepping her boundaries, and you're not going to let her get away with it. Not this time. But just as you open your mouth to speak again, you hear the sound of footsteps behind you. It's familiar, comforting, and instantly gives you a sense of relief. You turn around, and there he is, your son, your Marine son, home from his shift. The moment he sees the situation, his entire demeanor shifts. It's like flipping a switch. The quiet, calm demeanor that he always carries with him is replaced with the sheer confidence and authority that only someone with military training possesses. "Mom, is everything okay?" he asks, but his eyes lock onto Karen immediately. He's no longer the son you raised, the sweet kid who would help out in the yard. No, now he's the Marine, The protector, the one who's trained for situations just like this. Karen looks at him, sizing him up. You can see the sudden hesitation in her eyes. For the first time, she realizes she's in over her head. My son, standing there in his uniform, looks every bit the part of someone who doesn't take nonsense from anyone. Maybe it's time you leave, he says, his voice calm but firm, his eyes never leaving Karen. Her arrogance begins to fade, her bravado cracking. Without another word, she turns and walks away, her footsteps heavy as she retreats, leaving your home in peace. For those of you who've never experienced the headache that is an HOA, let me give you a glimpse into what life with one of these neighborhood overlords can be like. Picture a small suburban community where every house looks perfect, like something out of a catalog. But what lies behind that picture-perfect facade is the reality of living under constant scrutiny from people who believe they know better about how you should live your life. Enter Karen, the self-appointed sheriff of the neighborhood, whose entire existence seems to revolve around one thing: enforcing rules that no one else cares about. Karen is the kind of person who thrives on control. She walks the streets with an air of superiority, clipboard in hand, constantly looking for something to complain about. In her mind, she's not just a neighbor. She's the keeper of all things proper and appropriate. She considers herself the sole authority on what's acceptable within the confines of her jurisdiction, and she's quick to remind anyone who dares step out of line. The first sign that Karen has her eye on you is usually subtle. Perhaps you get a friendly reminder in your mailbox about the length of your grass being just a tad too long, or maybe she leaves a passive-aggressive note about your fence not being painted the right shade of beige. But soon enough, those little nuisances escalate. Suddenly, it's not just about your lawn anymore. It's about your mailbox, your porch furniture, your flower bed, and even the color of your front door. You'll get a letter reminding you that the shade of your flowers doesn't quite match the approved palette. That's right, Karen has an approved color palette for everything in this neighborhood. Don't even get me started on the rules about what types of trees can be planted. Apparently, some trees just don't fit the HOA's vision, and if you dare plant one of them, expect a letter in your mailbox, threatening fines if you don't remove it within a week. For Karen, there's no such thing as too petty. If it's a rule, she's going to make sure it's followed, no matter how absurd it is. Don't get me wrong, there's a place for community standards, but Karen takes it to an extreme. She's not enforcing rules to make the neighborhood better. She's doing it to exert control, to feel important in a world where she's otherwise powerless. For some reason, Karen seems to derive immense pleasure from sending out violation notices, and nothing gets her more excited than when someone doesn't follow the rules to the letter. The worst part? It's not just the rules she enforces, it's the way she goes about it. Karen doesn't knock on your door, give you a warning, or have a simple conversation. No, she sends cold, formal letters that always start with, "This is to inform you," followed by a list of complaints that seem to be plucked straight out of the HOA's rulebook. If you're lucky, you get a chance to appeal. If you're not, expect a fine that will make you question if your grass really was too long, or if the tree really did violate some unwritten code. The fines don't seem to stop either. They're just an endless cycle of petty punishments that serve only to feed Karen's insatiable need to police the neighborhood. But today, something was different. Today, Karen had her sights set on me, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. It wasn't just a complaint about my lawn or some other trivial matter. It was something far more invasive, something far more personal. Little did she know, this time she was about to meet her match. What Karen didn't know was that she'd messed with the wrong house this time. It all started a few days before when I received a letter from the HOA, another so-called violation at my property. It wasn't even worth getting upset over at first. After all, I had been following the rules to the letter, or so I thought. It was something trivial like the way I trimmed the bushes at the front of the house, or the placement of a few potted plants. But Karen had decided that my minor landscaping choices didn't meet her high standards, and apparently that was enough to warrant a violation notice. Now, anyone who's been through this kind of thing knows how frustrating it is to deal with people like Karen. The notice was impersonal, cold, and didn't even give me a chance to explain myself or make any adjustments. Instead, it threatened fines and stated that I needed to rectify the issue or face further action. It felt like a personal attack, but I shrugged it off at first, telling myself that I'd deal with it the next day. Little did I know, that would be the last time I'd let Karen walk all over me. The following evening, as I went about my usual nighttime routine, showering, getting comfortable in my pajamas, and preparing to relax for the night, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. It was faint at first, but as I focused on it, the sound became unmistakable, the click of a key turning in the lock. My heart immediately skipped a beat. The sound was all too familiar, but it wasn't supposed to be happening. No one had the right to unlock my door without my permission. And that's when it hit me. Karen. I froze for a moment, not sure what to do. Was she here to talk about the violation notice? Or was this something else entirely? Maybe she was just checking in to see if I had corrected the problem. But why would she be using a key to unlock my door? My first thought was that maybe it was my son who had just returned from work. After all, he had a spare key, and I figured maybe he had come home early. But as I crept toward the door and peered through the peephole, the moment I saw her face, I knew something was terribly wrong. There she was, Karen, standing right outside, holding the master key in her hand like she was the queen of the neighborhood. Her lips curled into a grin, and it was like she was reveling in the power she had over me. There was no mistaking it. She wasn't even trying to hide the fact that she was using the HOA's master key to let herself into my home. She was violating my privacy, and she didn't seem to care. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat getting faster as I tried to process what was happening. She wasn't just knocking or waiting for me to answer. No, Karen had decided to take matters into her own hands and use the very key she was entrusted with to break into my private space. I could see the look of satisfaction on her face as she stood there, clearly thinking she was in control. My blood boiled. The anger surged through me like a tidal wave, and before I could stop myself, I threw the door open. I had to confront her. No one had the right to violate my personal space like this. No one, not even Karen. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I knew I had to act fast. The adrenaline kicked in, and I took a deep breath to steady my nerves as I stormed toward the door. When I swung it open, Karen stood there, clearly surprised by the sudden confrontation. She was holding the key, still in the process of inserting it into the lock, and she looked almost smug. "Well, well," she said, raising an eyebrow and smirking. "It seems like we have a problem here, don't we?" I barely contained my anger as I shot back. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Karen?" She shrugged, her smirk never faltering. "I'm just here to check on the situation. You've been sent multiple notices, you know. It's only fair that I ensure you fixed the violation." I couldn't believe it. I knew she was overstepping, but I wasn't going to let her get away with this. "You don't have the right to use that key to break into my home, Karen. This is my private space. Get out. Now." But Karen, as usual, wasn't backing down. She seemed to take pleasure in pushing buttons, and she wasn't afraid to push this one too. "I'm just doing my job," she said, like that was some kind of excuse. But I wasn't hearing it anymore. My thoughts raced and my blood pressure spiked as I realized that not only had she overstepped her bounds, but she was also deliberately ignoring every boundary I had set. She had no right to be here, and I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. I stepped forward, blocking her from entering the house, and for the first time, Karen looked uncertain. It was a feeling I wasn't used to seeing on her face. The smug confidence that always accompanied her HOA antics was now replaced with a flicker of doubt. As I stood there, my mind started racing with the thought of what would happen next. I wasn't going to let this woman get away with using her HOA privileges to invade my home again. She had crossed the line, and this time there would be consequences. When I swung the door open, Karen was standing there, just as smug as ever. The light from the hallway illuminated her face, and she looked like she was preparing for some grand victory. In her hand, she still held that master key, the very one she had no business using to try and force her way into my home. Her expression was almost triumphant, as though she had won some sort of small victory in her ongoing war of petty complaints. "I was just checking on a few things," she said casually, as if this was a perfectly normal thing for her to be doing. Her voice was almost too calm, as if she had every right to be standing there at my door, in my personal space, without any warning or invitation. It was almost as though she had forgotten that I had any say in the matter. The audacity! I stood there, staring at her, processing what was happening. The nerve of her! I wasn't going to let her walk all over me this time. "What on earth are you doing trying to unlock my door with the HOA's master key?" I demanded, my voice shaking with frustration. My heart was still racing, but now anger was taking over. "You don't have the right to come in here uninvited, Karen." Without skipping a beat, Karen shot back, her voice laced with that unmistakable air of superiority. "I have every right to do so. It's part of my job to make sure everything in this neighborhood is up to standard. And you've been sent multiple notices. If you had followed the rules, you wouldn't have this problem." That was it. That was the moment I felt my patience snap. My blood was boiling, and the sense of violation grew stronger with every word she spoke. How dare she imply that I was the problem here? How dare she think that just because she had a key, it gave her carte blanche to intrude on my private space whenever she pleased? "That's not how this works," I snapped, my voice rising. "Just because you have a key doesn't mean you can just barge into anyone's home whenever you feel like it. The rules don't give you the right to violate people's privacy like this. I am the one who decides who gets to enter my house, not you." My hands were clenched into fists at my sides, my anger growing with every second. Karen just stood there, unfazed, not even flinching at my outburst. She crossed her arms, looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "If you hadn't ignored the rules, we wouldn't be having this conversation," she said dismissively, as though she were talking to a child who had failed to follow instructions. "You have to follow the guidelines if you want to avoid these issues." This wasn't just a disagreement about bushes or mailboxes anymore. This was Karen pushing her weight around, acting like she was the gatekeeper to our entire neighborhood, as if she had some divine right to invade our homes and lives. Her tone was condescending, dismissive, and incredibly infuriating. I felt like I was about to explode. I could feel the heat in my chest, and my thoughts were racing. This was turning into a nightmare. I could see no way out of this, no way to reason with her. She wasn't listening. But just as I was about to lose it completely, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. A wave of relief washed over me as I realized that it was my son, my Marine son, home from work. I could almost feel the tension lifting from my shoulders. Before I could say anything more, the front door creaked open fully, and my son stepped out onto the porch. He hadn't seen what had been going on, but he could tell from the expression on my face that something was wrong. The moment he saw Karen standing there, still clutching the master key like it was her ticket to authority, his demeanor changed. His face hardened into a look I knew all too well. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, his voice steady but with an underlying edge. His military training was evident even in his calm tone. There was no panic, no hesitation. He was ready to handle whatever situation had unfolded. "Karen here decided she had the right to let herself into our house using the HOA's master key," I explained, my voice still shaky but much calmer now that my son was there. "She's been harassing us with these ridiculous violations, and now she's literally trying to break into my home." I could see the gears turning in his head, but there was no anger on his face. Instead, his expression was one of pure resolve. My son wasn't a hothead, but he had been trained to deal with situations like this. He wasn't going to let some HOA officer intimidate us, especially when she was clearly overstepping. With just a glance at Karen, his body language shifted. He stood taller, his shoulders squared, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly, but the air around him grew heavier. The words were about to be said, and Karen was going to regret this encounter. "You're going to want to leave, Karen," my son said, his voice calm but firm, his eyes never leaving hers. "Now, before you make things even worse for yourself." For a moment, Karen didn't know how to react. She was used to being the one in control, but now, standing in front of my son, her usual bravado seemed to falter. It was clear that she wasn't used to being challenged, let alone confronted by someone who had the strength and confidence to back up their words. I could see it in her face. The realization was hitting her that she had miscalculated. She thought she could bully us, but she wasn't prepared for the authority that my son brought into the situation.